in themselves. And the reason for that is people want to be attracted to happy people because they want to mirror that. They want to mirror that feeling of happiness. So if you're out there and you're gloom and doom, you're never going to meet the match. You're never going to meet that person that you're going to say, this person is special for me.
No, you're not. That's very true. I mean, it's all about being positive and being confident because, I mean, people don't want drama in their lives. They don't want misery and all that stuff. So I suppose, I mean, it's fake it till you make it, really, isn't it?
Oh, do you know what, I'm just wearing this old t-shirt and this whatever. If you felt happier by putting on a newer t-shirt, say, you would walk with a bit more kind of like, I'm looking better today than I usually do. So it's not so much faking it, it's just bringing on that better you and stepping outside your comfort zone. I did a singles event on Friday night. I did the event, people were coming in and they were saying, I haven't done anything like this for years. The group were mainly over 30s. They said, I haven't done anything like this for years. I can't believe I'm out here. I can't believe I'm doing this. But before they decided to come along, I talked to them and I was saying, you know, I'm going to be there. I'm going to introduce you to someone a bit like you, that you feel that you're not alone. And I was so surprised the amount of people who turned up by themselves and they were brave enough to get out there. So it is about being brave enough to get outside your comfort zone and go to these things and have a laugh. And I organised a bit of salsa in the background just to distract people so they're not looking at each other and saying, and what's your name and where are you from? There's nothing more boring than that kind of conversation that feels like an interview. And instead they were going there and saying, have you tried salsa before? You know, have you tried, you know, ask more in-depth questions and be prepared to look into that person's eyes and ask them questions about them, not just that feels like as if you're just reading off a menu. Go for something a bit different. Like there's these questions they call the 36 questions to love, and they're absolutely amazing. And they're just helping you let down your boundaries and step outside your comfort zone because they're asking questions that you wouldn't normally ask. So anyway, I have them on my website if people want to look them up, the 36 questions to love on the Matchmaker.ie if they're interested.
What are some of those questions anyway, just to give people, I suppose, a tiny little sample? I know they can check out your website, the Matchmaker.ie, but just as a tiny little sample, even just give us one or two.
They might say, who's your favourite uncle and why? So in my case now, my favourite uncle would be my Uncle Tom. And the reason I liked him was because he was giggly, he was funny, he kept me laughing, and then that made me realise, you know what, that's what I'm looking for in a relationship. I'm looking for someone who's a bit of fun, who's giggly, who doesn't mind to wind up himself or be wound up a bit, or that kind of thing, which makes him step outside his comfort zone. And then another question could be like, what's the most embarrassing thing that you ever did in your life, for example? And you put me on the spot here because I can't remember the questions off the top of my head.
And I think, ironically enough,
Probably the matchmaking is what I'm most proud of, because when my marriage broke down and I thought, where do you go? And the pain behind it and not knowing where to go. And then I wrote a course on how I dealt with getting over my pain, and it really made me get rid of all that baggage and that trauma in the past and help people get over their trauma in the past. Because if you don't deal with your trauma and your things that, oh, I'm not good enough, or I'm not, no one will like me, no one will like you. So you have to get to that place where, do you know what, I like myself, whoever, and go that bit further, let love into my life. Dealing with your traumas, and our traumas all go back to when we're from age 1 to 7. And just say, what upset me then? And write out a list, what upset you? And why did that upset you? And explain to yourself, why that upsets you. And the more you do that kind of thing and go, why did I get annoyed with that? And go deeper and deeper and deeper to say, you know what, that's all in the past and I'll deal with it. If I need to go to a psychologist, I'll deal with it. Or if I need to just get out there and meet a person who I can discuss. Now, it's not like you're bringing on your baggage because you don't discuss your problems on your first date.
No, you don't. Oh, you don't. I mean, obviously, on your first date, it's kind of like, I suppose, I mean, you're kind of showing this side of yourself. It's not the whole lot of you. You want to show yourself in small parts, but also, I suppose, would you suggest that if somebody is dealing with trauma and they're starting in therapy and things like that, it wouldn't be the most ideal of ideas to be going out chasing relationships?
No, I wouldn't agree because sometimes you could come across someone who might actually be there and say, I've been through that. And people have been in that situation where they've both been through that situation and they've got over it together. So sometimes you can meet someone who can aid you in that way to get over your hang-ups or your situation. And if they're on the same path, you've often heard that with someone who's, say, now I'm going to the other extreme, someone who's at AA and they met someone through AA and they help the drinking problems, for example. They're a couple and they're both off it and they're like each other's backbone for helping them stay off the drink. That's the complete other side of things.
What do you think of this suggestion then by fellowships like AAN, ACAGA, all them, that once you come into recovery from addiction that you do not attempt to get into a relationship for at least 2 years?
Everyone is different, and I think everyone is different, and people shouldn't put a label on anyone completely. So obviously they know what they're talking about for people who are in a very traumatic stage. But if someone's there and they just say, listen, I'm drinking, I know I'm a binge drinker, for example, over that's different to someone who is there's 27 kinds of alcoholics, they say, so that's different to someone else. So it's completely down to the individual. But some relationships, they actually are people going through traumas who've actually...
Of course.
I mean, the reason I wrote the 21 Days Dating Challenge was to get people, the course I wrote, to get people to step away from their fears, to go back to themselves and realise how much they love each other, to know how to go out there, even into a bookshop and chat to someone who's reading the same kind of... and say, have you read that book? And start a conversation, start at the very beginning and get out there and meet people. And over this, even if it's over the vegetable counter, and say, listen, is that or food counter, is that piece of food ripe or is it not? You know, avocado or vegetable or whatever, is that ripe or not? So it's about getting out there, whether it's walks, whether it's events, whatever it is, getting out there.
So it's really, I suppose, it's all about getting out of your comfort zone. And I mean, I'm going to be talking to Christina Ramager after the break, and she talks about, she works for Bright Therapy and they deal with CBT, cognitive behavioural therapy, getting mixed up with something else. And she's involved with couples counselling. And one of the questions I suppose I'm going to be asking her is about how does CBT come into the equation when it comes to couples and it comes to relationships and things like that. And I suppose, I mean, it's great, I suppose, when you do get into a relationship with someone, Sharon, because, I mean, you do have an impact on each other. I know my partner's had a huge impact on me in a positive way, and I suppose I've had an impact on her in a positive way, which, I mean, it's amazing, and it's amazing how changes can happen. But I suppose it is about changing your mindset.
With couples, and the reason that they come to me when they've broken up is that the simplest things could have saved, and it's wonderful the work she does, the simple things could have saved just to give each other that little more attention. Like when you think about it, you spend as much time in work as you do, that 8 hours a day, as you do with your partner. And yes, you might only speak to your partner for 10 minutes that evening, and then you're both on your phones and you're both on your devices. It's never been so hard to hold down a relationship because there's so many distractions nowadays. And if people can learn to sit opposite each other and give each other that 20 minutes of listening to each other, that really helps to save a relationship. So it's just attention, affection, and appreciation are the main three things that people want in life. And when you go on that date, if you feel that you're valued, it makes you feel, I'm in the right hands here, and I feel valued. I don't feel that I'm being judged here, and I feel like I can be myself and be that giddy me or be that shy me, and I feel comfortable opening up to this person. So it's all learning to open up to that person.
That's very true. It is, and I mean, I suppose you're right that there's no one size fits all. When it comes to dating, when it comes to relationships, and we were talking about the whole thing with fellowship saying, okay, you shouldn't date for at least 2 years and things like that. So I mean, I suppose everybody's different, and I mean, it's about finding what works for you. I know personally, and I mean, it is true what you say about putting the phones down and things like that, and giving each other at least 10 minutes. But would you also agree that it's equally good if a couple can sit there in silence with each other, beside each other or whatever? Mm.
Because they give me that kind of dopamine hit that I'm used to because of my traumas and my.
Yeah, you bring these things forward with you.
You don't feel that mad chemistry. Doesn't mean that person isn't for you. Sometimes you can sit opposite that person and just feel, how does that person make you feel? That's what you should be asking. Do they make me feel calm? Do they make me feel happy in myself? Or do they take my energy? And when someone starts taking your energy, they're not for you. They absolutely take your soul away. So step back from that and do your list. And there's nothing like lists. The good about that person and the bad about that person, and weigh up the list. And how important is it? Do you need to sit down and have that big chat with that person, like, I'm not getting enough from this relationship, I'm giving too much, or the other way around?
Yeah, I don't know. I 100% agree with you, Sharon. And I mean, I think you have something else coming up as well. I know you've possibly got a couple of other events coming up. If you want to tell us a little bit about them.
Because, like you were saying about, do you wait for 2 years in relation to some relationships if you're going through, say, AA? It works with the matchmaker. There's some people, and they feel like, I don't want to invest the money in the matchmaker because I'm like their dating coach for 2 years
Mm.
through different relationships for those 2 years. Or maybe they might just stick with the one person and I'm still their coach through it. And that might be a bit expensive for some people. So I start doing events, like single events. And they are starting in Dublin, but they're going nationwide. And they're in Rain nightclub, which is in Portobello, the Portobello bar downstairs. And we're doing those once